The amendment places a non-binding advisory question on the November 4th, 2014 ballot asking voters, shall any health insurance plan in Illinois that provides prescription drug coverage be required to include prescription birth control as part of that coverage? I ask for your support.
On that, we have Representative Sandak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Until we yield.
Representative, what's the current state of the law in Illinois with respect to coverage for contraceptives?
We do require coverage, but it does allow for very high copays and deductibles. Under federal law, which is being challenged, women are actually able to access affordable birth control.
Wait a minute. I just asked about the state of the state law. What's the state law currently?
State law does require coverage.
And that's unequivocal, isn't it?
There are certain exemptions.
What are the exceptions? Since you mentioned that.
It's a broadly written exception for conscience or religious reasons.
Where do you see that, Representative?
It is in the code.
I have that code in front of me as well. It's 215 ILCS 5/35, Section 4, and it talks about coverage for contraceptives. I don't see a exception, a broad exception. Can you point that to me?
Just a moment.
Thank you. No way. For the exception.
Which one? Where?
The exception for what? I'm sorry, 745.
745, Section 70 of the Illinois statute, which offers the conscience clause.
745? Are you under 215 ILCS?
No,
Oh,
it's separate. 745 ILCS.
and what does that say, Representative?
Just a moment.
That doesn't apply.
Protects the right of conscience of all persons, including health care payers who refuse to obtain, receive, or accept, or who are engaged in the delivery of, arrangement for, or payment of health care services and medical care that is contrary to their conscience.
Representative, that speaks to people who deliver services. It does not speak to insurance or coverage. That is a totally inapplicable.
Payment of health care services.
That is not insurance, Representative.
Insurance is payment of health care services.
How long has the current law been in effect, Representative?
Since 2004.
Correct. And are you aware of any court challenges presently before the court on the propriety of the provision at 215 ILCS?
There are no current challenges to the Illinois law.
There is?
There are no current challenges to the Illinois law.
Now, you also mentioned federal law, which also provides for coverage for contraceptives, does it not?
Yes, it does.
So essentially, this non-binding question that you advance is a triplicate, is it not?
No, it is not. There are questions about the federal law, which does provide more accessible coverage for folks who utilize these medications, and that law is currently being challenged with a decision coming shortly. This ballot initiative will give us clarity as to what the people of the state of Illinois truly want and need with regard to whether men and women should have equal access to medical care and medicines that they require.
And that's a nice stump speech, but the fact is the law in Illinois, if you even accept that the federal law is convoluted or could be challenged, any law could be challenged. But the state of the law as we stand here today is this already is in effect in Illinois, and it has been since 2004. And of course, the federal law also provides such guarantees and coverage. So my question again is, your non-binding question, what purpose could it possibly suit with respect to the state of the law in Illinois right now?
As I mentioned, Illinois law does allow for what can be completely prohibitive cost to patients. This non-binding referendum will give us clarity as to the importance of these medications to our constituents and allow us to understand how better to serve them, if we need to strengthen our law, if we need to make it more accessible.
Well, it's clear right now. I think what you're doing is adding another question and on the ballot. And to that item, how many, assuming this is passed and makes it to the November ballot, how many questions will be on, referenda questions will be on the next ballot?
This is the first question I've presented, so I honestly don't know.
Well, let's walk through them together. It's the first one you've presented, absolutely. But as you know, you voted on some already too, right?
I have.
Right. You voted on the victims' rights question, correct?
Yes.
Marcy's Law. You voted on voting rights question, correct?
Yes. Those are constitutional amendments, so these are different.
Well, but there are going to be questions on the ballot, right?
There'll also be candidates on the ballot.
There will be candidates on the
The
ballot.
ballot will have a lot of things on it. That's what
Let's
ballots
stay
are.
to my question, if you wouldn't mind, and you can editorialize and expand when you get to close. Minimum wage? You voted on that, yes?
It has not passed both houses.
But if it does, assume it will.
I make no assumptions.
Is the law as it currently exists in Illinois clear or not clear, Representative?
As I said, there is a difference between the federal law and the state law. The level of coverage available to our constituents is different under both laws, and I'd like to see this question answered to get clarity, so that women who cannot afford coverage, who cannot afford these medications, if we as a state need to make our law better, we can.
Mr. Speaker, to the non-binding question, let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen, exactly what this is. This is yet another misuse of public questions to gin up the vote come November. There is absolutely no legitimate question what the state of the law is right now. You vote yes on this, all you're doing is piling on the electorate to gin up a base. Let's not be disingenuous. The law is clear. The law in the state of Illinois is crystal clear, and it has been since 2004. What's more, the federal law makes this also a non-issue. But instead, what we're doing, again, is picking at the fray, looking at opportunities to gin up the base come November. It is disingenuous, it's disheartening, it's absolutely the wrong use of the process here. Vote on this, make sure you know you're a game player, you're not using the process right. This is a bad vote, it's bad process, don't do it. Vote no.
Representative Mayfield.
Thank you, Speaker. To the bill, I stand in strong support of this piece of, into this resolution that's going on to the ballot. However, I would much prefer that was a bill. I am sick and tired of these prescription companies deciding what's best for women. The fact that you are denying prescription drugs to women that had a substantial impact on their lives. Birth control pills are used for more than just, excuse me? Birth control pills are used for more than just unwanted pregnancies. They're used for women who have menstrual issues. You heard that, menstrual issues. They help to regulate periods. They have a bona fide health benefit, and yet there are individuals out here, mainly men, who feel that they know what's best for women. Now, I would like to see this turned into a bill. The fact that it's an advisory question on the ballot, I hope that every woman in the state of Illinois votes yes for this. Because we have been denied one time too many. Do you realize that these same prescription drug companies that are saying no to women on prescription contraceptives are saying yes to men on Viagra? Now you tell me what's the benefit of that. I urge a strong yes. Thank you.
Representative Ives.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor will yield.
Considering the 2003 bill and considering that the Affordable Care Act requires private health insurance plans to cover contraceptions free of charge. Who is this bill targeting? Who are you targeting here? Which insurance companies are targeted?
I'm not targeting any insurance companies. I am seeking to get a clearer understanding of the value of these important medications to the people we serve.
Earlier this year, the United States Supreme Court exempted the Little Sisters of the Poor from complying with the ACA's mandate on birth control coverage due to their First Amendment's free exercise of religion rights. Do you disagree with that ruling?
Do you really want to go to that? What is your question again? I'm sorry.
Do you disagree with the Supreme Court's ruling that the Little Sisters of the Poor should not have to provide free birth control or birth control coverage? Do you disagree with that ruling from the Supreme Court?
I believe that insurance companies should cover birth control.
Do you agree or disagree with the Supreme Court's ruling?
I am not familiar with the Little Sisters of the Poor case. I will tell you that I believe that insurance companies should cover birth control. I believe that everyone should have equal access to medication.
It's the law in Illinois to cover birth control. Do you believe religious institutions should not have to cover birth control? Yes or no through their insurance carrier?
There is already a broad exemption for the conscience clause. I believe that men and women should have equal access to medication, and that poor and rich should have equal access to medication, and that's what this advisory referendum is about.
Are you targeting insurance companies of
I am asking a question of the voters.
The businesses that have religious exceptions?
I'm not targeting anyone. No, I'm not targeting anyone. I am targeting the people of the state of Illinois and getting their input on the importance of these medications to the people we serve.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Does this bill include coverage of Plan B or the so-called morning after pill?
I read the language of the advisory referendum, and it simply says, shall any health insurance plan in Illinois that provides prescription drug coverage be required to include prescription birth control as part of that coverage? That is the simple language of the referendum.
Mr. Speaker, to the bill. This referendum is extremely broad. It would absolutely violate religious protections that are in place, things that the Supreme Court of the United States have upheld. And if we're going to ask referendum questions on all sorts of policies, how about this one? Should or should not public employees all be converted to a 401k plan to save money? That's a good referendum question to put on the ballot. Should or should not this state go right to work? That's a good question to put on the ballot. Instead, we continue to double down on social policies, things that are meaningless, just to gin up the vote. Vote no.
Representative Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the lady yield?
Responsible yield.
Representative, you've made clear what the referendum language is. In your opinion, if this were to pass and follow-up legislation were to be introduced, would it require religious organizations to provide this as well?
We're simply not at that point. I don't have an opinion on that until
your
I see the results of
intention?
the referendum.
Is that your intention?
My intention is to get information from the voters of the state of Illinois about how strongly they feel about access to birth control.
But we have those exemptions now, and if the people come back and say all insurance policies must include this, you're saying that religious organizations and business owners who have right of conscience are going to have to carry it as well. And we want to beat up on the insurance companies here. It's the individual companies that decide the makeup of their policies in a lot of instances, as long as they're within the realm of the law. You're saying that all companies, all religious organizations, anybody with the right of conscience would have to have this coverage in their policies.
Let me read you the advisory question once again, and you can tell me where in there that exists. Shall any health insurance plan in Illinois that provides prescription drug coverage be required to include prescription birth control as part of that coverage? There is nothing in there about the right of conscience. Nothing.
That's right, and that's what's
It is simply asking if people believe that coverage should be available, period. I'm not targeting anyone. I am not going after anyone. I would like to hear from the people that we serve how strongly they feel about access to health care.
To the bill, ladies and gentlemen. I find it interesting that a representative that's very passionate about bullying presents bills like this, it absolutely bullies people with religious conscience and makes them do something that goes against their faith. That's not right. And it's not just this bill, it's other bills that's been presented. So if you really look at the makeup of the bill, we're bullying people that don't want to provide this type of coverage to their employees. And lastly, and more importantly, the level to which we are trying to manipulate elections in this state is almost criminal. We're going to have an election bill come out here that make a buzzard puke. And we see it every year. We got referendum after referendum after referendum trying to manipulate elections. That should be more important to all of us, no matter what party we're from, what part of the state we're from, that this is going on in this state. Vote no.
Representative Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
The sponsor will yield.
Representative Cassidy, for purposes of legislative intent, I know you've read the language of the bill, but it says any insurance plan. And as we know, most insurance plans are run by corporations, whether it be not-for-profit or for-profit corporations. Is it your intent to include Medicare Part D insurance?
Well, that's an interesting point. Medicare Part D would apply to someone who would not likely be on birth control, since that is for seniors.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that is
But
an
if they
insurance
currently
plan.
provide prescription drug coverage, they are currently covered under Illinois law.
Okay, well, that's
That
a
said,
good thing.
Medicare
So
Part D would
now
not necessarily
Medicare
be the
Part D well, and first of all, I mean, you're asking a person who's voting, every voter of Illinois, if they think a corporation should have to provide something.
Is that a question?
Right. I mean, is that your legislative intent? You're just saying to the voter, do you think?
I am asking voters if they believe health insurance plans that cover prescription drug coverage, that offer prescription drug coverage, should also include prescription birth control as part of that coverage. That is the plain and simple question before the people that I trust to tell us their opinion.
Right. And so, in effect, aren't you asking a voter to give you your input as to whether or not they think we should legislate something that makes a corporation provide something?
I am asking the voters' opinion as to whether health insurance companies should provide this coverage.
And it's a non-binding referendum.
Yes.
So you're just trying to take the pulse of every voter in Illinois, what they feel like that day.
Just as we ask them who they want to represent them that day, we're also asking their opinion that day, yes.
Okay, well, to the bill, I think this is another opportunity for us to provide news fodder for our whole state as a joke of this nation, that obviously the legislature doesn't know their own laws, because we already have a law in the state that pretty much provides just what we're asking. Not only that, we have the Affordable Health Care federal law that likewise provides it. So I think it's great that we give celebrity comedians an opportunity to poke fun at Illinois once more, that we want to ask the voters on every type of situation, when in fact what we should be doing is getting our fiscal house in order, giving people job opportunities, instead of trying to mislead the public, mislead our voters as to what they already have. It's just incredible to me.
Representative Rebelletti.
I have an inquiry of the chair, Mr. Speaker.
Please state your inquiry.
If you could ask the clerk what's the status of House Bill 6237?
Can we wait till we finish this legislation right here?
It's actually part and parcel of this, Representative Leader. And let me ask some questions of the sponsor first while the clerk is checking the status of that. Representative, so with this question, we know that the state of Illinois law is that it's already covered. That's fair to say, right? All the state plans cover this. Is that correct?
What did you ask?
Do the state plans, does the people in the state of Illinois, are the women already covered by this? Yes or no? What's the state of the law?
If they have prescription drug coverage in their insurance plan, yes.
And so this will then reaffirm our statute. Now, what if this failed, Representative? If this failed, would you be prepared to file the bill to not do that, to take away the prescription drug option?
We are not at that point. Once again, as I have said, I am asking this question of the voters, and I'd like to get their opinion. This very simple and clear question.
Oh, it is. And if it came out the way you didn't want it to, would you be the one that would file the bill to repeal the coverage?
I want to get the answer to the question. The question gets on the ballot. We will take the answer that comes.
Do you have the status, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Representative Rebeletti, that bill is in rules.
Oh, that bill's in rules, Mr. Speaker. Shocking. I'm amazed. And to this ridiculous piece of legislation that we're going to waste our time on today, shall the law of the state be the same as it was yesterday, as it has been for 10 years? Really? That's what we're bothering with in the last day of session? Then the gentle lady from Rogers Park doesn't know if she'll honor what the people of the state will say. What if they say the complete opposite? Who will file that bill over there? Ah, the silence is deafening. And even better yet, we don't want everybody to weigh in. Well, of course, Representative Zaleski would be for that. House Bill 6237 is in the Rules Committee, which asks a more cogent and important question. Shall the income tax stay at 5%? That's not important enough. We want to really know if the state of federal law and state law should stay the same. And then if the Constitution is changed because the Supreme Court finds it unconstitutional, maybe we could have a constitutional convention and we'll be the beacon of the nation and start the drive to turn it back. Maybe the Wolfpack lobbyists can come back on that one. This is ridiculous, Mr. Speaker, that we're wasting time on asking advisory questions on something that's been settled law here for a decade. And if this passes, Mr. Speaker, I ask for a verification.
Representative Rebeletti has requested a verification. Representative Cassidy to close.
Very simple. If you believe that women should have equal access to medical coverage, vote yes. To this very, very clear question. Thank you.
Again, Representative Rebeletti has requested a verification. We'd ask all staff to retire to the rear of the chamber and members vote their own switch. The question is, shall the House concur with Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 5755? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On the count of 62 voting yes, 48 voting no, 0 voting present, the House concurs with Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 5755.